Thank you, council members, for joining us at tonight's formal council meeting. Yeah, it's, we will get it for you right now. One moment, please. He needs the resolution. Chris is reading it. Okay, perfect. Never mind. Got it. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us at today's formal council meeting. We want to welcome you, and we do continue to hold hybrid meetings to keep everyone healthy and safe and create other forms of accessibility to our council members for the public. Our meetings are public, and you are welcome to join in person or by watching from the council's agenda page, our Facebook page, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope that you'll continue to join us in whichever way you feel most comfortable. This is a work session. Nope, that's not. It's not a work session. It's a formal session. We're going to get to the right page now. It's one of those moments. Okay. So we will begin our formal meeting by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Oh, thank you. That's so nice of you. You know, it's good to have good friends that always have your back. Thank you, Boo. So before we begin, I just want to mention and remind everyone about our rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure that our meetings move along well and to help everyone feel comfortable sharing their comments. A copy of the full rules of decorum are available at the door, and our staff will post the link in the WebEx. And now we are on item A4. The council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall recognizing March 31st, 2023 as International Transgender Day of Visibility in Salt Lake City. I will turn the time over to Councilmember Chris Wharton to read the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution, a joint resolution recognizing March 31st, 2023 as International Transgender Day of Visibility in Salt Lake City. Whereas International Transgender Day of Visibility is observed and celebrated on March 31st, and whereas International Transgender Day of Visibility is a time to celebrate and recognize a large community of people, including people who identify as transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming, and whereas the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City are committed to advocating for the rights, dignity, and equality for transgender and gender diverse people everywhere, and whereas transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people have long added to the rich tapestry of Salt Lake City and Utah as a whole by telling their stories through activism and advocacy and living openly and authentically, and whereas more transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people are gracing the covers of magazines, film, and television, raising awareness of their gender identities and highlighting their contributions to our culture and history as artists, musicians, healers, workers, and organizers. And whereas, in light of recent legislation around the country and here in Utah aimed to target and exclude transgender youth, it is especially crucial that we, as a city, come together and uplift and celebrate our transgender community. And whereas International Transgender Day of Visibility is a time to join the transgender community around the world and acknowledge their community's many contributions, accomplishments, and leadership. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Salt Lake City recognizes March 31st, 2023 as International Transgender Day of Visibility in Salt Lake City. Be it further resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City recognize the bravery of the transgender community as it fights for equal dignity and respect. Be it further resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City invite residents to observe International Transgender Day of Visibility by learning more about the trans experience in an effort to decrease stigma, combat hate, discrimination, and misinformation, adopted this 21st day of March 2023 by the Mayor and Salt Lake City Council.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. I will look for a motion. We haven't adopted it yet, even though you read that.
yes.
So I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, Mono, a second by Councilmember Petro. Any further discussion to this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution is adopted. Congratulations, everyone. And I believe that we have Will Terry here from Equality Utah to accept the resolution. I don't know, Will, if you'd like to come and say a few words.
On behalf of Equality Utah, I just want to say thank you so much for adopting this resolution. And there's a couple names I want to call out here that are friends of Equality Utah and residents of the city that I know this means a lot to. Alex Zindikoff, Wyatt Longendorfer, Erica Red, Margot Plum, and I also want to give a special thanks to Senator Plum, who's joining us today, for being such a strong voice up the legislature this past legislative session for transgender rights. So thank you.
Thank you. And if we'll clap first. I would love to invite everyone up to have a picture with the council, if that's okay. If we'd just come right up here.
You're not getting by me without a hug. I don't know. No. Yeah, whose phone was it today? Whose phone?
Thank you, everyone. We are moving on to our public hearings. Our first public hearing, B1, is a funding allocation for one-year action plan for community development block grants, otherwise known as CDBG, and other federal grants for fiscal year 2023-2024. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to our very own policy analyst, Ben Ludke, who is a guru at all things CDBG, to give us a short introduction. Ben?
Thanks, Madam Chair. The annual grants from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department, or HUD, are one of the largest non-pandemic funding sources the city receives from the federal government. As happens most years, requests for funding are greater than available funding. Across the 4 grants, nearly $11 million was applied for, but the available funding is nearly $9 million, or $2 million less than requested. Funding recommendations from the advisory board and the mayor are identical this year. Attachment 2 is the funding log available in today's meeting packet. The funding log has details on the applications, the requested and the recommended funding amounts, and the scores each applicant received. The council is scheduled to vote on April 18th for the final HUD grant awards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Taylor, I believe we can begin with our first commenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like there are 15 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be John Haymond, followed by Stuart Ralphs, and then Zach Bale. John is here in person.
Good evening, City Council members. As mentioned, my name is John Haymond. I'm a volunteer with NeighborWorks Salt Lake and have been volunteering with them for over 30 years. I currently work for a bank here in Salt Lake City, Medallion Bank. 45 years ago, NeighborWorks Salt Lake for 45 years, NeighborWorks Salt Lake has been a dedicated and vision comprehensive neighborhood revitalization agency throughout the Salt Lake City. For over 4 decades, our mission has remained the same, building on the strength of neighborhoods to create opportunities for affordable housing, economic development, youth, and resident leadership. We have worked in partnership with residents, government, and businesses to build and sustain neighborhoods of choice. In 1977, Salt Lake City Corporation was instrumental in helping create Salt Lake Neighborhood Housing Services, which is currently NeighborWorks Salt Lake, to serve as a conduit to administer and deploy funds the city receives from the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the form of loans, grants, property purchases, and rehabilitation, the broader efforts to increase and maintain affordable housing within the city. We're one of the city's most tenured and effective partners in neighborhood revitalization and consistently leverage government funds with other partners. Throughout our efforts, we have facilitated the investment of millions and millions of dollars in this community and through development of projects that often support the city's housing goals. Given our 10-year track record and having navigated the challenges of the current housing market, we recognize that many factors can affect performance and that there's always room for improvement. However, what makes this funding different from the past is the funds will be awarded as home improvement or down payment assistance grants for homeowners. We already have 10 families in the pipeline we are working with. This will make it easier to deploy the funds within the year allotment, which has been a challenge when we have been making funds available at low interest rates. We appreciate the City Council's approval of our $400,000 recommendation. Thank you.
Next will be Stuart Ralphs, followed by Zach Bale, and then Christine Elmore. Stuart is here in person.
Thank you. City Council members and Mayor in absentia. Stuart Rouse with Legal Aid Society of Salt Lake. We celebrated our centennial anniversary last year, 100 years of service in Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County. I come to express my appreciation to the committee and to the mayor for recommending Legal Aid Society of Salt Lake for $30,000 for our Domestic Violence Victim Assistance Program and our Bridge the Gap program. We are back in funding after being out for several years. I know priorities change over time, but the impetus working on domestic violence and homelessness, our program is specifically designed for that. Although we don't build housing, we don't provide housing itself, getting protective orders for victims of domestic violence is one of the best ways to go upstream and address the housing need, because when we can keep families, especially parents with children, in housing and keep them safe in their existing housing, then we don't have to spend that much more downstream to find them new housing and those extra costs. So it's one of the most cost-effective ways to address one of the most urgent housing needs in our community. That goes to say keeping people safe in their homes. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I cannot imagine not feeling safe going home at night and feeling safe in my home, or having to protect my children from an abusive partner or house member. So we truly appreciate this funding, and we'll put it to good work for the citizens of Salt Lake City.
Next, we will hear from Zach Bale, followed by Christine Elmore, and then Bailey White. Zach is here in person.
Great, thanks so much for having me. Zach Bale with Housing Connect. I'm speaking to our funding request for HOPWA funding. Many thanks to the council, to the mayor and city staff for your support. We've had a long-standing partnership just shy of 20 years, receiving HAPWA funds. So these are funds supporting rental assistance for individuals who are HIV, AIDS positive and need financial support. Over the course of the last year, we've served just shy of 60 households. The majority of these households are very low to extremely low income. The majority, about 80% or 30%, below area median income. So certainly individuals that, when making decisions navigating both important health needs, meeting the needs of family and paying rent, often these households without this support often are unable to make and support all the needs. So this is a really critical funding program. In context of the kind of the greater housing need, this one's unique. It is a partnership both with the University of Utah, Utah AIDS Foundation, and really provides kind of a full service program for individuals to meet their medical need and housing need. So we thank you for your ongoing support. Our request is slightly higher this year. Our hope as an agency is to continue to support more of our residents in our community have safe, affordable housing. Thank you.
Next is Christy Nellermore, followed by Bailey White, and then Abdurzik Ibrahim. Christy is here in person.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, City Council members, Mayor Mendenhall. It's great to see you. My name is Christy Nellermo. I'm with the International Rescue Committee here in Salt Lake City. The IRC is what we call it, and Salt Lake City has been around since 1994, supporting upwards of 12,000 refugees create a home here in Salt Lake City and call this place the place that they raise their children and do their lives and rebuild their lives from conflict and disaster. And so this funding is supporting refugees and new Americans in their digital inclusion pathways. It is the 21st century. If you don't have digital tools, there is no way you can navigate almost any service, healthcare, job readiness, employment searches, financial literacy, even looking for better homes and better apartments and more affordable rent, all includes a digital literacy lens. This funding would support the digital inclusion program that is housed within the education program, which I manage at the IRC Salt Lake, and it would help clients from the day of arrival in that first 30 to 90 days access computers, affordable broadband with individualized support, including accessing the Affordable Connectivity Broadband Program through the Biden administration, and basic skills on how to use that device, apps for navigation and interpretation. And funding would also help us deepen this program to help with weekly language-specific classes for clients where they can kind of navigate and bring their own relevant digital needs to IRC staff and support with learning how to use those tools in reality, to search for jobs, to help their kids enroll into school. This funding will also help us bolster our volunteers. We have a tech squad program where volunteers are matched with refugees in their homes and help them with their individual digital literacy goals through 6 to 8 week journeys. And we have an assessment tool from the beginning all the way through our 18 months of case management, supporting clients along that pathway to see where their skill development is increasing and really look at outcome-driven programming. Time. So great to be here. Thank you again for this time.
Next will be Bailey White, followed by Abdurzik Ibrahim, and then Brandon Veal. Bailey is here in person.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to comment. I am Bailey White with the Road Home. Just a fun fact for you guys, we are celebrating our 100-year anniversary. Yeah, so we have been in existence serving low-income and vulnerable residents of Salt Lake City for 100 years, so stay in tune for some updates on our 100-year anniversary. We're excited to celebrate that. I'll be speaking about our emergency shelter programs that we've requested funding for. First, I just want to say thank you so much to you all and to the Community Advisory Board, to Housing Stability staff, and to the Mayor's team for reviewing all of our requests. We know it's a ton of requests. We know we're always asking for more money than you have, and it's tough decisions to make, so thank you for taking the time to look them over. At our Gail Miller Resource Center, to date, through the end of December, we were able to serve 487 unique individuals. This year, we've been able to start a lot of really innovative programs. Some of those have involved bringing Medicaid providers on site to help connect people with better medical services. As we saw through the pandemic, medical services are key to making sure that people avoid returns to homelessness. We are also really excited that we are about to start a pilot program with Salt Lake City Police Department to help improve the safety and support our participants and the community with some of the security that is happening kind of in that community. So we want to make sure that everybody is supported and that we're responding to everything. But we just wanted to say thank you so much. We appreciate your time for reviewing everything, and we'll have another colleague of ours speaking about some of the fun stuff that our housing programs have been able to do this year. Thank you.
Next will be Abdulrazak Ibrahim, followed by Brandon Veal, and then Andres Calderon. Abdulrazak is in person.
Yeah, my name is Abdulrazak Ibrahim. I am sad and sorry to see that the Salt Lake City is giving the CDGB grants to mostly the large organizations and those who receiving it in the past, and organizations like mine are not included. That makes sure that refugees struggling to survive, refugees who do not know English and do not know their way around our system. And then I myself, I came as a refugee in 1998. I'm still doing what I'm doing right now. I really work like 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, even middle of the night. If our clients call us, we are available. Even some of the people who comes as refugee, they still keep calling us and telling us, we need help, we need help. That's all I want to say that. Thank you, guys.
Next is Brandon Veal, followed by Andres Calderon, and then Melissa Broderick. Brandon, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to make a comment on behalf of my organization. So my name is Brandon Veal, and I'm the grants manager with South Valley Services. We are a domestic violence emergency shelter, as well as domestic violence service provider that helps clients throughout Utah. Last year, with help from funders such as yourself, we were able to make a lot of significant strides in several of our service areas, such as 2,500 total survivors helped across all of our programs, 510 individuals served in shelter, about 15,000 total shelter nights and hotel stays provided for, and 2,500 hours of case management services, as well as children advocacy services. About 96% of our clients report having zero income. This coupled with the fact that it takes victims about 7 tries to leave their abuser, and the fact that most of the services that we provide are often life-saving, and the difference between an individual choosing to become homeless or return back to their abusive relationship. Since the COVID pandemic, domestic violence in Utah has seen a continual uptick that we do not see reversing anytime soon. We just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to comment. And with that, that's all.
Next will be Andres Calderon, followed by Melissa Broderick, and then Laurel Ingham. Andres, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Andres Calderon. I'm the Emergency Home Repair Program Director at Assist Community Design Center. We serve low-income homeowners with accessible modifications and emergency home repairs. And on behalf of Assist and the crew at Assist, I'd like to thank the Mayor and the CDCIP Board and the City Council for their funding recommendations for this coming fiscal year. We are extremely grateful for the long and fruitful partnership we've had with Salt Lake City in providing community and housing stability to qualifying homeowners in need. This past year, we've received many calls for assistance by those in financial hardship, and just a few examples of the projects we've completed to keep people in their homes include accessible bathroom remodels to change bathtubs into roll-in or curb showers, accessible ramp installations for those with mobility issues, small and large plumbing repairs, broken or leaking water heater replacements, furnace repairs and replacements during our cold winter months, and many, many other projects critical to housing stability. Many of these projects we have completed in partnership with other nonprofits engaged in similar work, and we are so grateful for them and all that they do. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and the support of Assist.
Next will be Melissa Broderick, followed by Laurel Ingham, and then Ryan Gibbs. Melissa, you are unmuted.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm Melissa Broderick with The Road Home. First, I'd like to thank the council and the mayor for your support and efforts towards ending homelessness. The families we are serving with the funding of our Futures program, home tenant-based rental assistance, and ESG rapid rehousing funding sources received by you give family supports from our housing navigation team, our housing stability homeless outreach team, and our housing case management teams to ensure timely housing searches and housing stability. Our housing case management provides housing stability case planning, access to substance use treatment, referrals to behavioral health and medical providers, as well as supports with transportation and really so much more. I could go on and share with you a larger picture of what these funding sources do, but I thought I would actually share with you a story of a family that has benefited from the services you have provided to their own home. This particular family consists of a single father with 2 elementary school aged children unable to consistently attend school. They were living in their vehicle and really struggling to meet their needs. Our Housing Stability Homeless Outreach team found them and brought them to our Family Resource Center, where our housing navigation team assisted them in moving into an apartment. Once fully transitioned into their apartment, case manager assisted in getting the children re-enrolled in school, connected their father to mental health supports, as well as employment resources. The family really struggled to adjust, but they made big efforts and were able to take over their rent because their father was able to get some good income. That's just one example I could share with you out of dozens, but the Road Home appreciates your time and efforts towards our shared goal of ending homelessness. Thank you.
Next will be Laurel Ingham, followed by Ryan Gibbs, and then Mary Calhoun. Laurel is here in person.
Thank you so much to the council. My name is Laurel Ingham. I'm the Chief Development Director at 4th Street Clinic. My pronouns are she, her. Thank you so much. I am so excited about this program. I cannot even tell you. It's in conjunction with our partners at the Road Home. It is called the Health and Housing Transition Pilot Program. And what it's going to do is going to put our providers together to create a team in the Magnolia to really address some behavioral health issues that are happening. We're going to do a priority focus at Magnolia. We're going to look at Palmer Court and Wendell Apartments. The program is really going to look at the social determinants of health specific to the housing programs to increase that access to health services with a focus again on that behavioral health need. It's going to target individuals and families housed within the last 12 months or really those that are considered at risk of eviction due to their untreated mental health needs and or medical health needs. The best practice models for this population always indicate that providing assertive, co-located and or outreach services contributed to a higher rate of engagement in services for a longer period of tenancy in housing. Again, we really want to keep people in housing once they're in. We have to have this program. So it will do real-time coordination between 4th Street Clinic and the Road Home and eliminate any service duplication. A needs assessment will be done and completed, and they'll do a shared treatment plan, and they'll be able to access that team in the moment. So if somebody's having a behavioral health issue in the moment, they'll be able to assess with that. So I want to thank you again for the $39,813. I'm not sure what that number comes to, but nothing comes up right. That will help pay for our funding gap. We did get some funding from Intermountain Healthcare, and that's going to help pay for one full-time behavioral health specialist, one full-time case manager, and one full-time program coordinator. Again, thank you so much. I'm so excited about this program.
Next, we will hear from Ryan Gibbs, followed by Mary Calhoun, and then Mark Glissmeyer. Ryan is here in person.
Good evening, City Council. Thanks for having me. My name is Ryan Gibbs. I'm here on behalf of Utah AIDS Foundation. So we want to thank you so much for all of the assistance that we've received through the HOPWA program. As a case manager, I work boots on the ground directly with clients. This funding is incredibly important for filling in many of the funding gaps that we have related to housing, especially during the pandemic and with the cost of living continuing to increase. This has been a real lifesaver for many of our clients who are on fixed incomes or who are experiencing some sort of crisis. Housing is the #1 thing we can do to keep our clients and patients on their HIV medications. If they lose housing, everything tends to implode, and one of the first things that goes is the focus on their medical care. If they can't go home to a safe place at night, oftentimes the last thing they're thinking about is going to that doctor's appointment that they have set tomorrow, going to the pharmacy, etc. And so this is really, really helpful for us being able to stabilize our clients and then also just fund the infrastructure that we need at the foundation to help our HIV positive individuals. So thank you.
Next will be Mary Colhoun, followed by Mark Glissmeyer, and then Ann Glissmeyer. Mary is here in person.
Good evening. My name is Mary T. Calhoun from First Step House. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with the council, and we want to express our gratitude and appreciation to the Citizens Council and the mayor for reviewing our applications and making funding recommendations at this point. So we actually have 5 applications in, so I'm going to talk very briefly about each one. But first I'll tell you a little bit about First Step House. We have been serving Salt Lake County and Salt Lake City since 1958. So for 65 years, we've been providing behavioral health treatment and transitional housing. And in recent years, we've branched out tremendously to expand that to permanent supportive housing. We really see it as taking the best of what we do and what we've done for so long and combining those services, treatment and housing together to meet the needs of the most vulnerable people in our community. The people we serve at First Step House, most of them fall beneath 30% of the AMI. They come to us with high severity substance use disorders, mental health conditions, and they come to us typically from incarceration and with histories of homelessness. So the 5 applications that we have recommendations for, the first is about access to treatment. We partner with the Road Home on our Resource Center program. We embed a behavioral health team in 2 of the resource centers to help homeless guests receive access to behavioral health and substance use disorder treatment. The next 2 programs are supportive services, serving all of our clients in treatment and housing. One is peer support services. This is an evidence-based practice using individuals who have lived experience with substance use disorder recovery and mental health recovery, working directly with clients as they're in treatment. The other is our employment preparation and placement program. This program.
Time.
Oh, I talked way too long. Thank you. The other ones are really good too.
Mark Glissmeyer has left the meeting, so next will be Ann Glissmeyer, followed by Miles Ellis, and then Drew Olson. And Ann has also left the meeting, so we will move on to Miles Ellis, who is here in person.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Miles Ellis, and I'm a proud homeowner in the Guadalupe neighborhood. I'm here tonight to provide my support to NeighborWorks Salt Lake, a local nonprofit organization that without I would not be able to buy a home. For the past year, I was struggling to find a house with my partner, and it was getting to a point where we were thinking we weren't going to be able to find a house. I'm sure everybody knows with how the housing market is right now. It's really tough, so NeighborWorks was there to help me get into a home that fit my needs and my wants for a house. Also, it made it so I could financially afford a community that I really, really appreciate. Their down payment assistance program really helped me in the home buying process. They have 80/20 mortgage with one of their approved lenders, and I can stand before you and say that if I wouldn't have had the help from them, I probably wouldn't have a house. So I would really request funding that can continue to help residents like me and others that want to pursue the American dream here in Utah. And thank you.
And next will be Drew Olson, who is here in person.
Hi, everybody. I'm Drew Olson. I'm the Mental Health Director at the Utah AIDS Foundation. And I just wanted to take a brief moment to say thank you so much for the support that HOPWA has given to my program. Thanks to this support, we've been able to offer free mental health counseling to our clients who are living with HIV. And this has provided an immense amount of support in helping our clients to feel stable in their mental health by effectively navigating experiences of depression, anxiety, PTSD. And these services that are being provided to our population, that many of them have been marginalized throughout their life, and these therapeutic spaces have not been accessible to them for a variety of reasons, are so important in helping them to effectively navigate the barriers that are existing in them being adherent to their care and living well. And we really want our clients to live well. So I just wanted to say thank you again so much for your support, and I have a lot of gratitude. Thanks.
That was the final registered commenter.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who gave a comment today. Just so everyone knows, we will have another briefing on CDBG funds on April 4th, is that right? And then take action on April 18th. Do I have a motion on this?
Continue, right? Motion to continue.
Madam Chair.
You guys make the motion, we can.
I lost it.
Typically,
Madam
at this
Chair.
point, the council would close the public hearing.
Yeah. Yes. Close the public. Yeah.
Close it.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the items to a future date for action. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Puya. Any discussion on this? I see no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 7-0. Our next item, public hearing item is B2, and that's not true because I think I will be looking for a motion on this one, isn't that right? I think we are polling this rezone. Oh, not this one. Got it. Public hearing is on the rezone and master plan amendment at 865 South, 500 East. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn it over to Brian Fulmer, who knows way more than I do, to give a short introduction. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal to amend the zoning map for a parcel at 865 South, 500 East from its current RMF 30 zoning designation to CN, or neighborhood commercial. The proposal would also amend the Central Community Master Plan future land use map from low-density residential to neighborhood commercial. The petitioner's stated objective is to convert the single-family residential structure to an unspecified commercial use. Thank you.
Taylor, we will start with comments.
Madam Chair, there are 2 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Adam Vogel, followed by Cindy Cromer. Adam, you are unmuted.
Hi there. My name is Adam Vogel. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Thanks for taking the time to hear my comments today. I think that this is a generally positive change. That being said, the proposal did mention the possibility of some other zoning categorizations for it. And I think it could be worth giving some consideration to zoning this as mixed use or maybe form-based urban neighborhood 1 or 2. I'm not an expert on Salt Lake zoning, but I think leaving it available to housing options as well might be worth considering. Thank you.
And next will be Cindy Cromer, who is here in person.
Hi. Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong. We get an outstanding, nuanced analysis of all of the relevant planning documents from the planning staff, and they are numerous, recommending denial of the requested rezoning. What happens? The Planning Commission goes off the rails and concludes that this neighborhood is not sufficiently walkable and needs another commercial use. It does not. It has 3 of the state's 9 James Beard semifinalists. It has a chocolate shop, which has been in business for 99 years. In fact, it has plenty of everything except long-term residents. 84% of the occupants of Central City are now renters. And with the escalating cost of housing, they have to move around like cats on a hot tin roof. What we need are long-term residents, either renters or homeowners, preferably the latter, to balance out the tsunami of renters along the transit corridor. The neighborhood can't afford to lose this housing unit. The city can't afford to lose this unit of housing. It will never be replaced as a housing type in this neighborhood. Additionally, the posting of the property was inaccurate, suggesting that the proposal was from Rocky Mountain Power. How did that happen? And the date was incorrect. As a result, I'm asking you to hold the public hearing open. I think that's only fair. And more significantly for public process, no one would know about a potential ADU in the rear yard discussed at your work session unless they had attended the work session or listened. The concept of adding an ADU in the rear yard and further aggravating the existing parking problems never came up previously in the public process because the staff report was for denial, as it should have been. Any development agreement would have to go through the entire public process, beginning with the Planning Commission. The only good news here is that the city has hired a skilled and talented young planner. Unfortunately, his professional recommendation and my own views based on decades of experience with Central City's housing are being ignored. Thank you.
And next will be Christina Robb, who is in person.
Hello, my name is Christina Robb, and I'm the chair of East Liberty Park, ELPCO. I am here tonight to talk about this because, for 2 reasons. We were, 1, told to trust our planning folks. 2, we were also asked to look at some rezoning along the 900 South corridor in ELPCO, which we are really excited to support. And 3, we wanted to speak to affordable housing being the #1 priority in the area. And we feel like here is a great opportunity for some affordable housing that would be turned into business. However, we do support the business along the corridor. We do not want to start a precedence for the businesses taking over potential housing heading towards the mid-block. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair.
Could we wait to make sure there's no other speakers? Please,
waiting.
Taylor.
That was the last registered commenter.
And now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move that the council continue the public hearing to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Puy, a second by Councilmember Mono. Any discussion about this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did just want to mention is because there's a noticing error.
issue.
So
Yes.
thank you, Cindy, for helping us figure that out, and we will.
So we will have
Rectify that.
another public hearing on this item to address the fact that there was a noticing issue so that other people who may not have gotten notice are hopefully now on notice that we will have another public hearing on this.
And the exact date of that continued public hearing will be dependent on, we're going to be working with the recorder's office to determine how long it will take to get all those ducks in a row.
Perfect. Thank you. In case I didn't say it, that passed 7-0. We are moving on to item B3, which is an ordinance looking at electric vehicle readiness off-street parking stalls amendment. And before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Sam Owen, who is on the big screen today, one of our council staff policy analysts, to give us a short introduction. Take it away, Sam.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The proposed change would require new multifamily residential construction or major renovations to outfit 20% of provided off-street parking stalls with infrastructure necessary for future installation of an EV charging station. So, together with the existing ordinance, a project providing 20 off-street parking stalls would outfit 4 with charger-ready infrastructure and one of those 4 with a full charger as well. The same proportion applies to spaces reserved by the Americans with Disabilities Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Taylor, we will start with our comments, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have about 8 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Kelby Gupul, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Eliza Cowie. Kelby, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to participate virtually in this hearing. My name is Kelby Gopal. I am a senior associate with Utah Clean Energy. We are a nonprofit organization working in the clean energy transformation space, including utilities, building and residential electrification, electrified transportation, and climate leadership. Utah Clean Energy is pleased to support Salt Lake City's proposed EV readiness ordinance. We believe this is an important step to support clean air in Utah and move the city into the future of transportation. It's clear that electric vehicle adoption is on the rise, and EVs are becoming more affordable, especially with recent federal investments, such as the $4,000 used EV tax credit. It's important that everyone who wants to be able to own an EV is able to own an EV, and access to charging at home is an important part of that decision for most people. Renters and those who don't live in single-family homes have often been left out of this opportunity due to lack of access to at-home charging. It's important that EV charging infrastructure keeps pace with EV adoption, especially in multifamily housing, where retrofitting to support EV infrastructure is substantially more expensive than installing it upfront. Additionally, EVs provide important benefits, including reducing local emissions. It supports individual transportation choice and will help to reduce air pollutants that harm public health in our communities. Utah Clean Energy has been following the development of this ordinance over the last couple of years, and we want to acknowledge and appreciate the thoughtful and thorough stakeholder input that Salt Lake City Sustainability Department has conducted. By adopting this ordinance, Salt Lake City will join at least 47 other cities with similar ordinances in preparing their multifamily housing infrastructure for the future. In closing, Utah Clean Energy strongly supports this proposed ordinance, and we encourage the council to adopt the ordinance at the earliest possible opportunity. Thank you.
Next will be Nigel Swaby, followed by Eliza Cowie, and then Deborah Kapeloff. Nigel is here in person.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nigel Swaby. Over the past couple of years, I've served on the legislative committee for the Utah Association of Realtors. And over the last couple of sessions, there have been several bills that address this very thing in different capacities that have failed. As on the board, I heard different comments from developers and landlords, and they are completely in support of an ordinance like this or a law like this for new construction. Where they would oppose it would be for existing construction. So you guys are leading on this subject, and it's something that I support, and you would have support from a lot of people because they recognize the high adoption of electric vehicles and need this sort of thing. Thank you.
Next will be Eliza Cowie, followed by Deborah Kapeloff, and then Katie Pappas. Eliza is here in person.
Hello, my name is Eliza Cowie. I'm a resident of Salt Lake and also the policy director at O2 Utah, where we are concerned with air quality along the Wasatch Front. As you probably know, transportation currently stands as the largest contributor to our air quality issues along the Wasatch Front. While its impact is projected to decrease due to technology advances and adoption, this will only happen if individuals are able to adopt electric and other zero-emission options for vehicles moving forward. Providing equitable access to charging stations is pivotal in this momentum. According to Axios, charging access is among the top 4 barriers to EV adoption. The other are cost, availability, and the fact that people typically buy cars every 16 years. This remains especially true for those living in multifamily housing and renters. Under current permitting regulations, the construction of new multifamily units does not require the concurrent construction of home charging infrastructure, which is an essential component of improving the overall cost and effectiveness of EV adoption. The multifamily housing industry is quickly outpacing single-family housing nationwide. According to the National Association of Home Builders, in 2022, multifamily new building projects increased by 9.5%, while single-family housing starts increased by 5.5%. Looking around Salt Lake City, this reality is clear, especially in our downtown. We need to get in front of this and provide multifamily residents access to EV charging stations. As a Salt Lake City renter, not having access to a charging station at home is the #1 reason why I haven't traded out my gas-powered vehicle for an electric option. Ensuring that renters have access to an on-site charging station needs to be part of our equation to combat our air quality issues. Please vote in support of this critical amendment.
Next will be Deborah Kapeloff, followed by Katie Pappas, and then Alex Bayo. Deborah, you are unmuted.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Deborah Kapeloff, and I am the Transportation Electrification Policy Analyst at Western Resource Advocates. WRA is a nonprofit advocacy organization fighting climate change to sustain the environment, economy, and people of the West. Today, I'm speaking in strong support of the proposed EV readiness ordinance, one of the best tools available to increase access to EV charging for multifamily dwellers. Building EV-ready parking spots at the time of construction is cost-effective, being 3 to 5 times less expensive than a retrofit, and avoiding obstacles such as demolition and surface repair of parking surfaces, as well as upgrading electric vehicles. Baking in EV readiness is especially important in the multifamily housing market segment, where residents have little agency to install charging infrastructure. This ordinance would allow these residents to choose an EV, knowing they had access to charging at their residence. Other cities have adopted EV-ready ordinances already to future-proof their housing stock and smartly prepare for the EV adoption we know is coming. Among these cities, Chicago requires 20% EV-ready parking spaces, as do Atlanta and Washington, D.C. This proposed ordinance incurs small additional upfront costs during construction, but saves time and money down the road and helps equalize access to charging for all city residents. To conclude, Western Resource Advocates strongly supports this ordinance and sees it as an important tool to allowing all residents of Salt Lake City to be able to choose a vehicle that best suits their needs and helps reduce air pollution. Thank you.
Next will be Katie Pappas, followed by Alex Bayo. Katie, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name's Katie Pappas, and I live in Salt Lake City. I support this ordinance to provide for future electric vehicle charging. This will further the city's carbon emission reduction goals and will enable families that cannot or choose not to buy their own home to enjoy the benefits of driving an electric vehicle. Those benefits include lower maintenance and fuel costs, as well as cleaner air for all residents. With EVs now on the road that are 10 or more years old and new tax incentives, there are many affordable used EVs available for purchase. This will only increase over time. I appreciate Salt Lake City being proactive, planning for a cleaner future while enabling more people to participate in shaping that future. Please adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
And next will be Alex Bayo, who's here in person.
Hi everyone, Alex Bayu. I'm a resident of District 3 and a policy associate with HEAL Utah, otherwise known as the Healthy Environment Alliance of Utah. We focus on air quality, climate initiatives. all types of good stuff that the city's already accomplishing. And I'm happy to be here today supporting this really fantastic EV readiness ordinance. Really just want to commend the council and the mayor and sustainability staff for considering this ordinance. It's the exact type of ordinance that HEAL is looking to push forward. When we're thinking about electric vehicles, we really need to be thinking about the broader scope of how we can get everyone to adopt electric vehicles to clean up our airshed and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So I really want to commend you all considering this ordinance. I really urge you to vote yes for the ordinance, offering the support of HEAL Utah on that, and also offering the support of HEAL Utah for any type of additional ordinances or municipal level work that can be done to encourage any type of work that takes an environmental justice lens, really thinking about moderate to low income communities, renters, how they can adopt electric vehicles, building electrification, any type of decarbonization projects. Looking forward to having more conversations with the city. Something off the top of my head right now, in the IRA, there's tons of money in the climate emissions reduction grant program. There's $4.6 billion available right now. Cities have until April 28th to apply for this program. And I'm hoping that we can start some conversations to hopefully get Salt Lake City on board with that. Thanks for your time.
And that was the final registered commenter for this item.
Wonderful. Thank you to everyone who commented. Council members, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Council Member Dugan, a second by Council Member Wharton. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 7-0. This brings us to our next public hearing, item B4, which is budget amendment number 5 for fiscal year 2022-2023. And once again, we have our esteemed Ben Ludke at the table, council staff policy analyst, to give us a short introduction. Ben?
There are 24 proposed items in budget amendment number 5. They have a total expenditure of $33 million. Some of the largest items include $5.5 million for police officer one-time retention and hiring bonuses, $4 million in additional emergency rental assistance from the U.S. Treasury, $2.6 million for City Hall earthquake repairs, and $2.4 million for public safety radio replacements. The staff report, the administration's transmittal, are available in today's meeting packet. The council has a budget webpage, which is updated throughout the year. It can be found at tinyurl.com/SLCFY23. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Taylor, we will start with our commenters.
Madam Chair, there are 2 people here to speak to this item. The first will be Jeff Sandstrom, followed by Amy Hawkins. Jeff, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is Jeff Sandstrom. I'd just like to take a minute in support of the budget amendment number 5. It includes several important items that are a positive to the entire city, including the additional earthquake repairs to City Hall, the upgrades to public safety radio systems, and recruitment and the retention of police officers. I think those are all broad-based positives for the city. I'd also like to support one of the smaller items that it helps our ballpark neighborhood greatly in regards to the funding for repaving and repairing the Lockhart Alley, which runs south off of 13th South by Wayne's Corner. Funding this would really help the residents, business owners, and others along the alley, especially on the west side where they face a lot of flooding in the alley. And I'd encourage you to support budget amendment 5, and I'd like to also thank Council Member Mono for alerting us to this opportunity and his support of this project. I thank you for your time.
And next will be Amy Hawkins. Amy, you are unmuted.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Amy J. Hawkins. I serve as Chair of the Ballpark Community Council. Tonight I'm speaking in support of Budget Amendment Number 5, like Jeff Sandstrom, because of the inclusions of funds to support the Lockhart Alley reconstruction, the improvements to the alley between Major Street and State Street, just south of 1300 South to Kensington Avenue. This neglected alley is immediately adjacent to one of the most notorious businesses in the neighborhood, possibly even the city, the gas station and convenience store at 1300 South and State Street, the business formerly known as Wayne's Corner. When our previous community liaison officer, then Detective Nathan Meinzer, now Sergeant, surveyed community members about their #1 safety issue in our neighborhood, without fail, folks described the drug trade that happened in and around Wayne's Corner. Detective Meinzer initiated a nuisance case against the business that was aggressively supported by a letter writing campaign by the community. But however, this alley allows for a conduit of criminal activity. It's a real sanitation hazard. It acts as a public toilet for folks without access. And so when it rains, Lockhart Enterprises floods with rainwater runoff from the alley and the biowaste and needles that are discarded there. If you ask our new neighbors at Fit to Recover on Major Street, a terrific organization that supports people in recovery through fitness, nutrition, artistic expression, and community service, some of them will tell you that a decade ago, prior to being in recovery, they used to score there. Luckily, Fit to Recover and others recognize our neighborhood's aggressive commitment to improving this specific area of our neighborhood. We've seen violence spill over from the drug trade there in the form of homicides and stabbings around 1300 South. But this past Saturday afternoon, like many others, I picked up trash and needles in this very same alley with some of my dedicated ballpark neighbors. Please support us. Let's get this alley fixed. Thank you.
And that was the final registered commenter for this item.
Excellent. Thank you for everyone who commented. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I will move that the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing documents only for the items as shown on the motion sheet.
Do I have a second? So, there is no second?
No, second.
Did you say it and I didn't hear you?
No, I did, but then you were asking, so then I started talking.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bowie, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion on this? I have one thing I would like to quickly say, and it's just a little something to our wonderful Lisa Schaefer, our Chief Administrative Officer. When we are fixing the building, can we leave some of the exposed brick? It's so fabulous. I'm just throwing that out there.
I heard that so many times. Too.
Yes. Is there any other discussion?
No, I just wanted to make a comment on some of the requests that I wasn't clear and about, who asked for what or how they made it to the agenda and stuff. And I think I love the idea that we can, Councilmember Pui's idea of the building security, like the $1 million. I think it's a good idea. I just wasn't prepared for that, because I just read, I think I missed the description of it. But it's something that, and I think you were shocked maybe with the alleyway that Councilmember Manu had requested. So maybe in the future, just for our information amongst ourselves, if you feel strongly about one of these things that you want to add, please let us know so that we're not surprised. And I think that was one of the recommendations from staff, that we don't surprise each other. And I think I may have done it before, so I'm also to blame for it. But just for future reference, please let us know, because it's a big chunk. Like $1 million was a big chunk.
No, Madam Chair, and Councilmember Valdemoros, this is my fault on this specific item, because I've been sort of working on this for a little while, but because of my travel and all that, it was last week, and I thought I lost my chance because I had to disconnect from the meeting. I thought that item, I didn't have the chance to really raise it up, but that's a really good point, and I appreciate that too, that you're saying that.
Any further discussion? Okie doke. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes 7-0. And there are more motions. Oh, I don't have the
Yeah,
other
Madam Chair,
sheet. Yep, yes.
I need to be recused for item A10.
Okay.
Aye.
And so for the public's reference, this is still in regards to budget amendment number 5. There were just certain items within the first motion that we could not vote on because Councilmember Mono needed to recuse himself. So with that, I would be looking for another motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing documents only for item A10.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Petro. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Will you grab Darren, please?
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing documents only for item I4.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Pui and a second by Councilmember Mono. Any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 7-0. I think we are finally done with that particular item on the budget. Thank you, everyone. With that, we will be moving on to item number B5, which is an ordinance regarding accessory dwelling units. Text amendment. No, you guys are fine. Oh, this is, before we get started on this, I would like to invite our lovely Brian Fulmer, who's all things land use, to talk to us about, to give us a brief introduction on ADUs.
Thank you. At the last council discussion last week, council members narrowed down the potential motions and ways they'd like to approach this to 2 basic options. I'll just briefly go through them. The first one would remove the conditional use requirements for ADUs. It would establish the maximum size of a detached ADU at 1,000 square feet, would retain the owner occupancy requirement for properties with single-family homes and ADUs in the FR, R1, SR1, and SR1A zoning districts. The minimum corner side yard setback is 20% of the lot width or 10 feet, whichever is less. It would provide a minimum of 1 off-street parking space for ADU residents with the following exceptions: if the property is within 1/2 mile of a designated bicycle lane or path, if the property is within 1/4 mile of transit, or if sufficient space for on-street parking is available in front of the primary residence. The second option is the same as the first, with the following change: that it would adopt the ordinance as proposed with owner occupancy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Taylor, we will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like there are about 25 people here to speak to this item. The first will be Michelle Watts, followed by Adam Vogel, and then Chase War. Michelle, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. I am hopeful that you all will keep the owner occupancy in the main house, or even vice versa, owner in the ADU, and rent the main home for the foreseeable future, at least 5+ years. I'd like to see programs to help homeowners be able to build an ADU and help provide a missing piece of the pie when it comes to affordable housing. AUDs are not the whole the whole pie when it comes to solving our housing issues. And for everything else that y'all have worked for and want to implement, thank you for your work. I do believe in empowering our communities to build generational wealth. At the same time, we need to preserve some of our deep lots and what makes the west side of Salt Lake City so unique. We are the stewards of what will be passed down to future generations. We don't need to hack up every piece of land. We have homeowners who would utilize their land for gardening, chickens, animal rescue, or just raising kiddos. We shouldn't take away future planning by getting rid of every single parcel. The fact that a handful of Salt Lakers and larger banks want to have 2 rentals on 1 parcel does not justify removing owner occupancy. It is offensive to me to hear that part of your proposed solution would have been to provide more enforcement on landlords if the owner-occupied rule was removed. Where's our current enforcement on the west side? Per the master plan, my neighborhood has been promised more landscaping, lighting, and enforcement, etc. We haven't received any of this. I understand development is a tricky gray area, and to say that the west side has been underdeveloped is an understatement. We have a feeding frenzy for our land, and we deserve more than just podium apartments. A fee here or a fee there to keep investors, developers, or landlords in line is a drop in the bucket. They'll pass the fee along to the renter, increasing rent prices. Please consider keeping owner occupancy as a must for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Next will be Adam Vogel, followed by Chase War, and then Keiko Jones. Adam, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Adam Vogel. I would like to speak briefly in favor of this proposal. From what I can see, it's generally a very positive change and will help improve housing accessibility. I would particularly like to mention that specifically disallowing the use of ADUs as short-term rentals is, in my view, a very important part of the proposal to ensure that they are actually beneficial to neighborhoods and don't have, for example, unruly Airbnb tenants. Additionally, as a Salt Lake resident who does frequently use public transit, a bike, or other forms of transportation, I think adding the exceptions to the parking minimum requirements is a great change in that proposal. Thank you.
And next is Chase War, followed by Keiko Jones, and then Landon Karzek. Chase, you are unmuted.
Hi, as many of you know, I live in the Guadalupe neighborhood and I serve on the Fair Park Community Council. Although I am just speaking for myself, everything I want to bring to your attention probably has or will be mentioned later, but I believe that there's some merit in repeating some of these issues so as to stress the opinions of our community. First, a 3-year period of time before assessing, I think, is not long enough. Frankly, I don't even think 5 years is long enough. In other cities where similar approaches have been made, results are still inconclusive. Additionally, the state of our economy throughout the pandemic and the years that have followed really have not made building an ADU easy at all, resulting in lower numbers of ADU construction than hoped. At this time, the majority of those who can afford ADUs are those with deep pockets or those who have access to deep pockets, like developers. Secondly, the owner occupancy requirement should remain in place citywide. Consideration of allowing multifamily zones as an exemption to the requirement will have negative effects on many vulnerable and fragile neighborhoods. There are communities and neighborhoods that have already suffered at the creation of TSA zones that would also be affected by this decision. This would only exacerbate the issues these areas are currently facing. Keeping the owner occupancy requirement intact across the city will keep the potential growth of these ADU communities in check. If the economy gets better and home prices level off, we still don't see an uptick, then I say revise. Thanks.
And next we will hear from Keiko Jones, followed by Landon Karzek, and then Margaret Holloway. Keiko is here in person.
Thank you. Hi, I'm here today in person for the first time to ask you to keep the owner occupancy requirement citywide. My concerns were expressed in Councilmember Wharton's amazing statement during last week's work session, so I'm not going to repeat them. but I just wanted to say 3 things. One, I say citywide because there are so many spot rezonings happening in this city. Even if you live in R1, your neighbor's property may turn into RMF at any time. And 2, about revising this in 3 years, personally, considering today's economy, it's not long enough for homeowners to build a lot of ADUs. And in last week's work session, I heard Councilmember Petro mention 5 years, and thank you, Victoria. And I hope to see you guys give more time to evaluate this. And 3, you talked about 80 to 125% of AMI occupying affordable housing, and that's a problem. And I would say, what affordable housing? Do you mean like 1 bedroom for $1,500 a month? That's not affordable housing. Simply, we don't have enough affordable housing. And instead of steering the 80 to 125% AMI into ADUs, please help them get into their own homes. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Landon Karzek, followed by Margaret Holloway, and then Dave Alderman. Landon's here in person.
Hi, everybody. My name is Landon Karzek, and I just want to talk to you as a West Side resident and someone who is fully intent on building an ADU. I really hope that you remove the owner occupancy requirement. Just a snapshot of somebody who's actually going through this process. I have a friend who was pushed out of town by high rent prices, and I fully intend to build this affordable space for him and I and his wife to be able to create wealth together through the future by creating an ADU that is cheap for him and I'm able to pay the mortgage on. So the major thing that gives me concern is this owner occupancy requirement. There are just so many situations where this requirement makes an ADU feel like a ball and chain instead of an asset. If I want to go to grad school in a couple of years, then, or maybe in my midlife, I want to go out of town, out of state to get a job for a couple of years, or even when I want to retire, there is the possibility of traveling the world for a couple of years and renting out my house while I'm gone. But an owner occupancy requirement makes it so I wouldn't be able to do that. I would need to sell my home in order to be able to leave for a couple of years. But this is my forever home. I want to be in this home forever. So to make it so that I am tied to a spot, even if I just want to be able to leave for a moment, it feels like a ball and chain that I'm always stuck to. So you're forcing a question. You say, do I want to provide housing for my friends right now in the present moment? Or do I want to postpone building an ADU till maybe one of these other dreams is completed, or another dream, and I just keep pushing it off further and further and further to the point I never build an ADU. So an owner occupancy requirement, and if I'm an ADU, oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Next is Margaret Holloway, followed by Dave Alderman, and then Nigel Swaby. Margaret is here in person.
Hello. You're the first person I've heard that has said that he wants to build one, and why. I listened to the work session last week, and it was very informative, and you guys, Mr. Wharton, thank you. You sticking to it. You tried convincing Mr. Puyi, convincing Victoria, convincing the others. The owner occupancy sounds always good. To remove it, look what happened to the Airbnbs. And we've been trying on the west side to get people's opinion through our Facebook page and Nextdoor. And, oh, yeah, let's build them. And I said, wait a minute. Look at either side of you. You always want someone else to do it, but look on either side of you. And picture that being now you have two rentals. Two rentals. You can't control them. You have no one to call to deal with the situation. Airbnbs, at least, are only there for a short period of time. But this is a rental situation. Do you want that next door to you? None of them answered. Not a single one of them ever answered back. I understand your position on that. I understand that. But have you thought about maybe giving a permit of a certain amount? Okay, we have no idea how many people actually want to do this. We have no idea, at least I've been asking and no one's been able to answer me, how many people are on a list that want to do this? How many are applying to do this? The liquor licenses, okay, they have to apply. There's only so many that can be done, and they watch. Can they not do that with this? And if it's okay, and it's okay, Glendale is going to be up for investment because of the park. And it's going to go crazy because they saw what happened in Liberty Park. Liberty Park is now surrounded by Airbnbs. That is the time they're going to buy and think about putting something in the backyard so they can, I know they're not legally supposed to do it, but you guys don't the city doesn't crack down on the Airbnbs now. So, oh yeah, they lose their license, but so what? They don't care. They're still going to rent it out. The only thing you can keep them from doing that is to take their house.
Next is Dave Alderman, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Christina Robb. Dave's here.
Good evening. My name is Dave Alderman, and I live in the lower avenues, and I'm here speaking in support of the revised ADU ordinances with the caveat that the owner occupancy requirements be retained. Removing the owner occupancy requirement would make home ownership even more difficult for individuals by putting them in competition with investor groups and realty corporations. By addressing one problem, you'd be making a bigger problem. One of the keys to stabilizing housing is home ownership. This is important enough to be a stated goal of the draft Housing SLC plan. It's also a key to minimizing displacement. Policies, such as those outlined in Housing SLC, should support home ownership, not disadvantage it as eliminating the owner occupancy requirement would. I'm speaking as someone that already owns a house. And when it comes time that my wife and I have to move out because we can no longer live in our house, no longer maintain it, eliminating the owner occupancy requirement would actually increase our property value and we'd be able to sell it for more. But I'm aware of people that are trying to move into a house now, and I'm also speaking as someone with adult children who would love to buy their own home but can't afford it in this environment. Making them compete with corporations will only make it more difficult for them to own their own home. An effort to increase housing opportunities should be pursued, but not at the expense of home ownership. Thank you.
Next is Nigel Swaby, followed by Christina Robb, and then Janet Hemming.
Good evening again. Good evening again, council members. My name is Nigel Swaby. I'm the chair of the Fair Park Community Council, and you should have gotten a letter earlier today with a statement from the council, but I want to speak personally tonight about this issue. As a council and as an individual, I am very opposed to removing the owner occupancy removing the owner occupancy requirement. To give you an idea of what the reality of the marketplace is right now, wages in Salt Lake County have gone up. That gives the median wage earner about a little over $2,000 a month for housing to be at 30% to be affordable. To buy a home at that price, at today's interest rates, it would be $265,000. It's the most they can afford. As I looked on the MLS today to find homes in Salt Lake City that were single family that met that requirement, there are none. There are none in the county either. For condos and townhomes in Salt Lake City, there are 8. In Salt Lake County, there are 22. The median wage earner in Salt Lake County cannot afford the median home. The new number came out earlier today. It's $524,500 for Salt Lake County. That's the median home price. Maybe we need to rethink the definition of affordable. Most homeowners spend more than 30% of their gross income on their first home. Owner occupancy should apply to all ADUs. They should only be built in residential areas, including R2. That's one that you left out. ADUs can help people attain homeownership while increasing housing stock. Allowing investors to buy will increase housing stock, but will not increase ownership opportunities. So I urge you, I love the other things that you're doing with ADUs, but you need to keep the owner occupancy requirement. Thank you.
And next will be Christina Robb, followed by Janet Hemming, and then Tom Lund. Christina's here in person.
Hi again. My name is Christina Robb, and I'm here tonight speaking to you about equity. I'm a renter in the R2 overlap zone between East Central and East Liberty, and also serve as the chair of East Liberty Park Community Organization. From the beginning of this debate, the ADU debate, ELPCO has been advocating for safe, affordable housing for renters. We have spoken very little about homeowners. We have talked about renters in ELPCO and across Salt Lake City. Speaking to comments today in the work session, and according to our meeting with the mayor's office and a representative CAN, the Thriving in Place data shows we, East Side renters, outnumber West Side renters. In order to support East Liberty Park renters, we support leaving owner occupancy in place citywide for however long it takes to collect local affordability data. We have poured through the non-proprietary data from Turner, the TIP data, which is limited, as well as an analysis of Seattle's ADU data, and find that the affordability data was not separated out for ADUs rented for free and those rented at for and at above market rates, thus provides very little data about affordability of ADU housing available to ordinary citizens like myself. In addition, 20% of ADU housing in this study was lost to STRs. We have received dozens of comments from our constituents, most supporting ADUs, all supporting owner occupancy. While we recognize OO may not be the best tool for supporting families and providing affordable housing to renters, or the best tool for preventing affordable housing being lost to STRs, it is the best we currently have. But without other option, you know, we're just waiting for a decision from all of you. Thank you.
Next will be Janet Hemming, followed by Tom Lund, and then Lynn Pershing. Janet's here in person.
Distinguished council members, I am chair of the Oakhurst Neighborhood Council, and also I'm speaking as a resident. I want to echo the wise words of Councilman Chris Wharton at last week's work session. He said if owner occupancy is removed from single-family zoning in the ADU codes, homeowners would be, quote, outnumbered and outgunned by corporations and developers. He is right. I believe he was also saying there is a very human side to the decisions this council makes. While trying to fix the city's needs for more housing, what real and unintended consequences might be triggered? Will the very things that attract record numbers of people to Salt Lake be lost if the city pursues what outside states and towns are experimenting with? Chris also asked a perceptive question of a city attorney 2 weeks ago, which yielded the startling knowledge that removing owner occupancy in single-family zones would effectively end single-family zoning in Salt Lake. 100 years of history conceivably swept away. In a written email to this council, I shared the story of my friends Jen and Jeff, who lived for years in a rental home owned by a local man. He only raised their rent $45 in 5 years. The owner had to reclaim his home, so Jen and Jeff, who both work and still have a son at home, finally found another place operated by a corporate home rental company based in Maryland. Their sprinklers were broken for 4 months during the summer. They had a leak in their ceiling that wasn't fixed for 3 months and caused extensive water damage. To add insult to injury, the corporation announced just weeks ago a drastic rent increase that exceeded their budget. During March, Jen and Jeff have been frantically searching for another place, and fortunately they found one that is an owner-operated rental. While Jen and Jeff's story isn't about ADUs, it is about what life is like in the... Thank you.
Next will be Tom Lund, followed by Lynn Pershing, and then Cindy Cromer. Tom is here in person.
Thank you. My name's Tom Lund. I'm part of the Yellcrest Community Council. The last time I was at this podium, I was feeling very, very discouraged. And I'm feeling, not that my feelings matter that much, but I'm feeling more hopeful just based on efforts that Chairman Dugan and others have been making, Chris as well. When I read about your most recent discussions, I thought it was thoughtful. It felt like it was thinking about things that matter. And I'm in strong support for owner occupancy for 3 reasons. I think that they make a difference as far as the care of the property, the parking. If we can get the ADUs ironed out so that they're not quite as big on some of these small lots, it deals with that. And the height of the ADUs, if they're not too high, it would be a blessing to our historic districts that we have all over the city, not just in District 6, to kind of keep that integrity, similar to other great cities like Boston and all over that have cared for structures that represent a really rich past. So I thank you for your most recent efforts.
Next is Lynn Pershing, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Diane Whitaker. Lynn is here in person.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight. I'm a strong supporter of owner occupation requirement for residential properties containing ADUs. I'm also a very strong supporter of internal ADUs. External ADUs, however, present a multitude of complexities. I believe in equal voices in a democracy, and I believe in equity rights amongst all property owners. Given that external ADUs are permanent and not readily removed, it is critical that we all use common respect and neighborly behavior regarding the installation of external ADUs. The golden rule applies here. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Installation of an external ADU should not come as a surprise to abutting property neighbors. I suggest as a common courtesy to be included in this code, advance notification of a pending external ADU to all abutting property owners, and that notification should provide a contextual elevation of height, size, and location of the pending ADU in reference to the primary dwelling. That abutting property owners be allowed 14 days to identify potential impacts to their property with 3 well-known and accepted land use mitigation issues, including air circulation, sunlight, and view corridors. Thank you.
Next will be Cindy Cromer, followed by Diane Whitaker, and then Eric Volchwitz. Cindy's here in person.
Please don't forget the issue that launched this proposal, which is the removal of the conditional use requirement. There's another staff report and another hearing tomorrow night at the Planning Commission because we're still talking about this. This is, of course, a window squeegee. It's useful for cleaning large pieces of glass, not divided light windows. It's not a good tool to use to pry open the doors of an elevator stuck between floors of the World Trade Center on September 11th. But that's what this was used for. One of the people trapped in the elevator was the window washer. Thank goodness. He was still carrying his squeegee. I'm speculating here, but I bet you that no one said that's not the right tool to use. I don't think anyone suggested waiting for someone to show up with a better one. The squeegee worked, accomplishing a task it was never designed to do. Is our emergency with housing as urgent as that day in 2001? No, not yet. Owner occupancy is the tool we have to attempt to reserve new housing and ADUs for people who live here, not for visitors at inflated prices. It is the only efficient and possibly effective tool that we have at the moment. Should we use it? Yes. Should we work to make other tools available in the future? Absolutely. Do we need to be concerned about every unit of housing removed from our supply? Yes. We certainly do, because the failure to do so in the past has gotten us where we are now. Thanks.
Next is Diane Whitaker, followed by Eric Valtuis, and then Jim Burdett. Diane, you are unmuted.
Yes, this is Diane Whitaker, and in order to save time, I would like to reiterate the sentiments of Ms. Pershing and Ms. Hemming. They said all that I want to say, so thank you for the time.
And next will be Eric Valtuis, followed by Jim Burdett, and then Stephen Whipple. Eric, you are unmuted.
Great, hello. My name is Eric Valtuis. I'm a homeowner in District 6, and I've spoken before about my support of the revised ADU ordinance, which I would like to reiterate here today. Given the two remaining options on owner occupancy, I support the collection of data and revisiting in 3 years. Two questions that I'd recommend studying would be one, the instances of renters being evicted due to homeowners moving out of the primary home, and two, a survey of homeowners who have not built ADUs and their reasons for doing so. But taking a step back, I tuned into the council's discussion from last week. And one of the main arguments that I heard in support of owner occupancy requirement was that it would prevent investors from taking advantage of the liberalized ordinance. I won't take up my time here to outline why the economics of ADUs don't generally work for developers, but I do want to say something to hopefully shape conversations around future land use reforms. Salt Lake's housing crisis is at its core driven by a lack of housing supply. For better or worse, almost all of the new units that are built in the US are completed by individuals and businesses who expect a return on their investment. I believe that fighting against this fact will simply mean that we'll continue with the status quo of not building enough housing in our city to the detriment of renters and those who want to attain homeownership. I'd encourage this council to take what I believe is a more constructive approach of redirecting housing developers to accomplish city goals instead of using the threat of developers to prevent the reform needed to solve the pressing issue of housing affordability. Thank you.
Next will be Jim Burdett, followed by Stephen Whipple, and then Kimball Young. Jim is here in person.
I'm Jim Burdett. I've watched over the years the many concerns and the slow progress of this evolving ordinance. And your debates in the last couple of work sessions have continued to be difficult and time-consuming. In the proposed motions you have tonight, I think you've come up with reasonable alternatives to ease the difficulty of a homeowner adding an ADU to an existing home. I'm referring to Motion 2 and Motion 3. About the owner occupancy requirement, what I think is the existing ban on short-term rentals can be the most significant damper on the worrisome takeover of home rentals by landlord-type investors. Your ideas of putting more teeth into the enforcement of that law could be the main deterrent to a business-type owner spending huge dollars on a backyard apartment. In my personal case, I have hopes for a ground-level living unit. For that, my existing garage would require a 65-foot square foot addition. The total footprint then would be 775 square feet. That's slightly over the currently allowed footprint. I'd much prefer this design to what is now allowed, which is to tear off my entire roof, build a box on top, and get a second floor apartment. Ordinance Motion 2 will allow my living with no stairs. So I hope you can settle this ordinance amendment. I mistakenly thought that that could be tonight that you could solve this, but not quite. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Stephen Whipple, followed by Kimball Young, and then Turner Bitten. Stephen, you are unmuted.
I also concur with the comments made by Ms. Pershing and Cumming and have nothing further to say. Thank you very much.
Next will be Kimball Young, followed by Turner Bitten, and then Larry R. Wright. Kimball is here in person.
Good evening. I'm Kimball Young, Chairman of the Foothill Sunnyside Community Council. I'm a Utah native, a longtime, half-century plus resident of District 6, 2-year renter, and 52-year homeowner. And I'm here as chairman to implore, my neighbors have instructed me, and I enthusiastically implore you to support ADUs with owner occupancy as most recently proposed. Just as a note, one of my neighbors who just moved out of our neighborhood over to District 7 said in selling their house, they were approached by an investor who proposed that their house would be a perfect VRBO and made an offer, a generous offer that was very much competitive. They ended up selling to another person, to a family. So to preserve owner occupancy and family occupancy, owner occupancy in our neighborhood, which is really appreciated. As you know, we have a renter majority city, which is growing because of this. 33% of all new homes that are purchased by investors who intend to rent, which really works against owner occupancy, which we really need more of in the city. District 6 and District 7 are the only two districts that have a majority of occupancy in owner occupancy. We should work as a city to preserve the owner occupancy that we have, plus grow it in the other 5 districts. Thanks.
Next will be Turner Bitten, followed by Larry R. Wright, and then Jim Webster. Turner is here in person.
Good evening. I'm Turner Bitten. I'm here representing SLC Neighbors for More Neighbors. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the proposed policy changes and specifically for the compromise that was proposed by Councilmember Mano earlier today. There was a lot of discussion today in your work session about data. And many of the comments tonight have focused on concerns that are not based in data. They're based on conjecture and assumptions. If data is what you need, it is readily available. Institutions like the Brookings Institute, Sightline Institute, Turner Center at UC Berkeley, and countless others have data on what's happening nationwide. Data from across the country supports our position that it's time for the council to make a serious commitment to removing owner occupancy requirements and not wait another half-decade to take action on this. We implore you to follow the state of California, cities of Portland, Seattle, and as of last week, Anchorage, Minneapolis, and many others that have ended owner occupancy requirements. The experiences of these cities are remarkably consistent. Few ADUs are used for short-term rentals. Corporate investors have not taken over housing markets, and a majority of ADUs are rented far below market rates. In Seattle, it's over 75% rented at affordable rates. We recognize that the politics of this issue may not be easy, but Salt Lake's position in the world is not unique. And we should not ignore the experiences of our peer cities across the country. I'll end with a quote from one of the Brookings Institute's reports on owner occupancy. Because renters typically have lower incomes than homeowners and are racially more diverse, owner occupancy requirements affect the economic and demographic makeup of neighborhoods. I'll leave you to draw a conclusion about how owner occupancy impacts neighborhoods citywide.
Next, we will hear from Larry R. Wright, followed by Jim Webster, and then Chris Magel. Larry, you are unmuted. Okay, we will move on to Jim Webster and circle back to Larry. Jim, you are unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Jim Webster. I live in the Hillcrest area. I'm a former chair. I kind of feel like removing the requirement for owner occupancy is a good thing. I mean, excuse me, I'm the other way around. I think we should have owner occupancy, but I want to stress that even having owner occupancy doesn't really protect the neighbor. I live in a situation where my neighbor wanted to just rebuild his garage, and he was talked into calling it an ADU. It was submitted as an ADU. There was no demolition permit, no notice to me, no plans, no elevation, and as a result, I have lead paint all over my backyard. It's a hazardous hazmat site right now. And I don't know if, Chris, you agree with me or not, but maybe the city attorney would take issue with this, but I think it's a taking issue. I can no longer use my backyard for my garden. It's the only place where I have available sun. So I kind of feel like requiring owner occupancy is maybe throwing a bone at us a little bit, and it's a good thing, and I support it, but it doesn't solve the problem of no notification to neighbors when an ADU is being approved. Thank you.
Next will be Chris Magel, followed by Robert Goodman, and then Kobe Elias. Chris is here in person.
Good evening. My name is Chris Magrill. The wording tonight said that the proposed changes seek to strike a better balance between encouraging construction and mitigating impacts to neighboring properties. The Planning Division has never said no. I'm not sure SLC needs to do much more than never saying no to encourage construction. So it had been suggested by some that we should give it 3 years. Let the owner occupancy go away for 3 years, see what happens. In the Liberty Park neighborhood where I live, we already know what happens. We've already seen what happens. We've had speculators purchase modest, affordable single-family homes, flatten them, and then build a 7-figure single-family home. Today on Princeton Avenue, there's an empty lot where last week there was a modest single-family affordable home. It is now going to be turned into another 7-figure home by the very same developer who has already done this in our neighborhood. We know what's happening. It's happening already. So in the past month, the building department has told me it's not their job to enforce owner occupancy. In the past month, a senior planner in the planning division has told me it's not their job to enforce owner occupancy. In the case of the Princeton house that was flattened last week by the speculator, he covered all the bases. The building permit says it is owner occupied. He has never lived in this house. The planning permit says he has no intention of living here and will sell as soon as the project is completed. We could get into numbers. Several people got into numbers. We could talk about this house certainly being at least 3.5 times the cost of a house that is within reach of the average household income in this zip code. Or we could talk about how the secondary building on this property will be larger than 13 of the 14 single-family homes in my block. But it's not, let's not get lost in the numbers. Here's the basic point. Actively encouraging wealthy speculators to flatten affordable single-family homes, to build 7-figure single-family homes, is not the way to support affordable housing. It is doing exactly the opposite.
Next will be Robert Goodman, followed by Kobe Elias, and then Paula Harlan. Robert is here in person.
Hello. Thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you to the council as well as the mayor's office. I'm a homeowner in District 5, and I was actually here, I believe, 5 years ago when then council member Kitchen suspended the council rules, and there was a 5-1 vote in favor of the ADU ordinance letting folks build ADUs citywide and removing the 25 unit cap in the city. That was a great day. Yeah, I would just like to once more speak in favor of peeling back some of the zoning requirements, the height restrictions, and the easements from the lot boundary. I do intend to build an ADU as well, and one of the advantageous things in my book is just being able to have relative shelter in place as they age. For the homeowner occupancy, removing the homeowner occupancy requirement, I would like to ask the council member to have put in a safety word at that point. I think it kind of reminds me of a affordable homeowner buyer plan, the previous mayoral administration that enabled homeowners to buy another house at the discounted mortgage rate, and what it did was it gave the advantage to people who already have tremendous economic leverage. So yeah, I request to keep the homeowner occupancy requirement. Thank you so much.
Next will be Kobe Elias, followed by Paula Harlan, and then Brian Burdett. Kobe, you are unmuted.
Hello. Thank you so much to the City Council and everyone today for taking my comment. I am a homeowner in District 7. I live in Sugar House. I am thinking about building an ADU. I want to build an ADU. The owner occupancy requirement is really a significant hurdle to get over to actually build that ADU, right? Thinking about we heard another comment today, my life in the future, the owner occupancy really limits the pool of folks who would be possibly willing to buy my house. And it also means that I would have to sell my house and possibly evict a tenant if I needed to leave for a period of time. So I think it really just introduces a lot of practical hurdle to building ADUs in the city. And I think we've heard a lot of comments today about how we need to wait and see. We need to, owner occupancy is kind of the last thing we have to limit ADUs. And I think that's true. I think the question for the city council to address are ADUs kind of a serious, component to addressing limited housing supply and housing affordability in this city, right? Are we willing to build smaller, inherently below market rent units throughout our city to address housing affordability? Or is the priority of the council to keep family zoning, keep housing supply limited, and exacerbate housing affordability issues that we have in this? I don't think restricting supply is a good way to address housing affordability, and I think the kind of around developers is really not borne out in the data. Yeah, thank you, City Council.
Next, we will hear from Paula Hartline, followed by Brian Burnett. Paula is here in person.
Hi, my name is Paula Harleen. I just have 3 quick things on my mind and 3 asks, I guess. First, please require homes that host ADUs to be owner occupied. I'm concerned about out-of-state investors getting rich off of our neighborhoods, and I'm concerned that properties are cared for by an owner who lives in the home and cares about the neighborhood. Second, please regulate the height and size of ADUs so that they're not out of proportion to existing lots and housing. Architecture matters because people have to look at and live with buildings around them. I moved away from Orem, Utah, about 35 minutes south, despite beautiful views of Mount Timpanogos, because the Orem City Council did not plan and regulate housing growth. Random buildings and developments popped up here and there until Orem became really ugly. and I'm hoping that won't happen in our neighborhoods in Salt Lake. And finally, please make sure that neighbors are not surprised to see an ADU pop up next door. There should be transparency about building plans. Thank you.
And next is Brian Burnett, who is here in person.
Good evening. I'd like to first thank you all for taking your time to address these difficult problems. My name is Brian Burnett. I live in District 6. I've lived here for 30 years, and I'm also on the Foothill Sunnyside Community Council. My wife and I sold a home last year, and we had numerous real estate investors contact us about the potential purchase of that home. We ended up selling it to two women who were going to co-own the home. Businesses are not, they're primarily interested in profits. They really have no interest in maintaining the property or maintaining the neighborhoods. And I know people are intending to, turn these into ADU, short-term rentals. So I think it's really kind of defeating the purpose. You're not providing affordable housing. You're encouraging investors to come in and build rentals that they intend to, many of them intend to be short-term rentals, which will not help affordable housing. And I have not seen where Salt Lake City is effective on enforcing its current ordinances for short-term rentals, for example. I know one, I looked at the administrative record on one short-term rental where the city tried. They went out several times, 40 pages in the administrative record on trying to shut down one short-term rental, and then the guy appealed it to district court. So adding a couple bodies to say, oh, we're going to monitor the short-term rentals, that's not going to happen. That's just completely unrealistic by the city to think that's going to happen. And so you're just encouraging something to further disintegrate good family neighborhoods. And families are not going to move into here. And I think you want to encourage that, support our schools if it turns up being just a bunch of rental areas that are degraded. And I've seen that happen in my hometown of Logan near the university. I've seen people in Provo have seen that. We live near the university, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen to our neighborhood. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
That was the final registered commenter.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who commented today. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we close the public hearing and defer action to future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. That passes 7-0. We are moving on to potential action items. Item C1 is a resolution for $3.5 million one-time home ARPA grant funding. I will look for a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Pui, a second by Councilmember Petro. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 7-0. Moving on to item C2, which is an ordinance amending the zoning text pertaining to the use of landscape materials. I will look for a motion.
Move for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Pui, a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 7-0. Moving on to item C3, this is an ordinance regarding the Glendale Regional Park Plan. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt the Glendale Regional Park Plan as part of the city's general plan.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Petro. Is there any discussion on this?
Are we supposed to close the hearing? Did that accidentally get left open, or?
Yeah.
Did you say close the public hearing? Yes.
Yes.
Any other discussion on this?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 7-0. We are now on section D, which is questions to the mayor from the city council. Our chief administrative officer, I knew it was in there somewhere, Lisa, is here. Thank you for joining us today. Council members, any items for Lisa? Nope. Okey doke. We are now on to general comments to the council. We Would ask that if it has already been discussed in a public hearing today, that you not rediscuss that. So this is a general comment section for all the other things you want to tell us. And I believe Isaac is here to help us with the commenters. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it on over to Isaac or Taylor, whoever's doing it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 9 people registered to speak to this item. The first will be Jim Jenkin, followed by Michelle Watts, and then Christina Robb. Jim, you are unmuted.
Thank you, council members. My comments have already been addressed.
And we will move on to Michelle Watts, followed by Christina Robb, and then Cynthia Yanni. Okay, Michelle has left the meeting, so Christina Robb, followed by Cynthia Yanni, and then Katie Pappas. Christina's here in person.
Hi. So my name's Christina Robb again, and I am the chair of ELCO. I am commenting tonight on general affordability of housing with the SLC plan and Thriving in Place in the affordable housing overlay. So ELCO advocates for clear evidence-based decisions with clearly referenced data, and I personally am in awe of your commitment to, well, all of your commitment with every decision you make. So thank you. ELCO supports your efforts to make housing more affordable. But if we're going to talk about equity and displacement, then we also need to continue to talk about taking care of current renters by incentivizing affordable and safe housing rather than prioritizing and rewarding speculators, and future renters who will benefit from our displacement for more of a gentrified housing stock. We support the city's efforts in this arena. To this point, I want to provide the council with a bit of a SLC geography that affects renters. In East Liberty, East Central, Liberty Wells, and Central City, many of our R2 and multifamily zones are sandwiched between R1 and other single family, as well as historic districts and historic overlays. Prioritizing low-density zones only incentivize displacement of families already residing in R2 and other multifamily zones at the expense of, well, actually, it just isn't equity. If we're going to talk about equity and displacement, then we need to start talking about taking care of our current renters by incentivizing affordable and safe housing rather than prioritizing and rewarding speculators and future renters who will benefit from our displacement for a more gentrified housing stock. Also, please, when you talk about nationally recognized studies or any studies, will you please consider providing your references and your dialogues? I'm clearly a numbers and data nerd, but I don't hold a candle to most of the people, the constituents, who are in my ear daily. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Next will be Cynthia Yanni, followed by Katie Pappas, and then Lisa Manuel. Cynthia is here in person.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. I'm a resident of Marmalade, West Side in the house. Anyways, I have a dog. She's waiting for me, so I'll be quick. Border Collie Aussie. She keeps me safe. Thank you, dogs. The dogs of Marmalade. They keep their hoods safe. Anyways, the Joanne sits in the corner of 200 West and 300 North. If her walls could talk, I'm sure she would shut up. She'd got to get night-night juice. But that building has a history, and we have to keep that. That's a red brick building with a neon sign. Can we put that on Friday, Saturday night? Come on, West Side Panthers. Show them the way. Get on East. Sorry, forgive me. I'm a West Side rad. I will die in that hill. I would gladly die in the studio apartment, too, because I would take care of that thing. I'm Mexican. But yes, I am Mexican. I'm proud to say it. West Side. West Side. And I just bothers me. It bothers me. There's a nice building they tore up. Where's their consequences? That was a nice building. I watched them. I heard that. It made me so sad. I'm like, there's got to be history to this. Do they have the right permits to do this? When's the question? Who's responsible? You know? Because that neighborhood was everything to me. I moved there with the dreams of raising my daughter, of being safe. Those dreams are dead. I'm moving west or east. I don't care at this point because those landlords have taken advantage of that poor building. They've milked her, and her udders are dry. The walls are falling. The neighbors don't care. Nobody cares. I'm the one out there weeding, taking care of the dog poop station, me, cheering those kids up, me. Because I was the one reading about them in Lehigh High, them trying to keep warm, writing UTA, them looking for food, them being displaced, call them homeless kids. Those kids have a home, but maybe they'd rather be somewhere else. Let's think about those kids, please. Let's make Marmalade safe again.
Thank you. That's time.
That
Thank you so
hood
much.
is not for sale.
Thank you.
It'll never be for sale.
Next is Katie Pappas, followed by Lisa Manuel, and then Rosie Sergo. Katie, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name's Katie Pappas. Regarding the annexation petition put forth by XL in the North Point area, I respectfully request that the city deny this petition or defer final action until two crucial steps have been taken. Number one, current conservation proposals for the critical Great Salt Lake South Shore and the Jordan River that would preserve and expand sensitive lands must be thoroughly considered and all new protected areas identified. There will be no opportunity for a redo on this. Number two, the North Point Small Area Plan needs to be modified to reflect those protected areas as well as protecting existing residential uses. Then it must be approved by the City Council. There should be no zoning changes prior to the North Point Plan approval. As has been pointed out, we don't need another warehouse district. But that's exactly what this petition is about, enabling a rezoning shortcut to M1. The increased noise, pollution, and traffic are not appropriate for an area where people live or in close proximity to important bird and wildlife habitat. Please take the time and consideration required to get this right. Thank you.
Next will be Lisa Manuel, followed by Rosie Sergo, and then Terry Marasco.
Good evening.
Lisa, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Lisa Manuel from District 4. My comments also pertain to the petition requesting annexation of the land at approximately 2200 West between 2800 North and 3300 North. I urge the City Council to adopt proposed motion 2 in your packet because it would be the first step in working towards a comprehensive environmental plan for the southern shoreline of the Great Salt Lake through annexation of all incorporated land in that area. There should be no need to explain the importance of the Great Salt Lake. I think that the city should be looking at important issues still unresolved in the North Point Small Area Master Plan before accepting a petition pertaining to one section of the unincorporated land. Piecemeal permit approvals have exacerbated many of the problems the city now faces in and around the Utah Inland Port Warehouse Farm, and I see no point in continuing similar bad practices. Thank you.
Next will be Rosie Sergo, followed by Terry Marasco, and then Rebecca Burridge. Rosie, you are unmuted.
Good evening, everyone. I believe my comment was missed during the ADU discussion, so thank you for allowing me a final minute to share my perspective. I am a homeowner in District 3 in the Marmalade and Capitol Hill neighborhood. In my home's immediate block, 8 of the 11 residential homes are already multiple unit homes. As someone who happily lives in a very rental-friendly neighborhood, I believe anything that incentivizes even less owner occupancy in Marmalade would be detrimental. On my street, in homes without on-site owners, I observe more short-term rentals, less commitment to historic preservation, and less neighborhood citizenship, such as attending our neighborhood council meetings. And in regards to housing affordability, my husband and I are like many of the 30-year-old first-time home buyers in our neighborhood who were only able to compete financially for our home because we could factor in rental income. And providing a pathway for young homeowners provides essential neighborhood stability as they enroll kids in Washington Elementary, restore 100-year-old homes, and build community. So I believe removing the owner occupancy requirement would further price out modest and young income home buyers in favor of large budget investors. And as an aside, in the likely event that these ADUs are misused for short-term rentals due to the existing enforcement limitations, owner occupancy often mitigates the negative effects that short-term rentals can have on a neighborhood. So I believe it's in our shared interest that the city incentivize both housing availability, housing affordability, and committed citizenship in the ADU ordinance, and owner occupancy is the best way to strike this difficult balance. Thanks so much.
And next will be Terry Morosco, followed by Rebecca Burridge. Terry is here in person.
He left. He left. Yeah.
And next will be Rebecca Burridge.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Burridge. I'm a resident of Holiday, and I'm here to speak because I believe North Point is currently co-owned by Salt Lake County, along with Salt Lake City. If motion 2 passes, which I hope it does, it seems as if this will be favorable to some of the outcomes I hope to see, especially if Salt Lake City plans to work closely with the county around issues involved with annexing properties in the unincorporated Salt Lake County. As I understand it, this motion will allow serious consideration of conservation of the area, which I definitely favor. The proposed industrial development of North Point threatens air quality and the wetlands next to the lake, which seems so counter to everything many people in our valley see as such a high priority right now: air quality and saving Great Salt Lake and its ecosystem. Please continue to do everything you can to try to meet these goals. Thank you very much.
That was the final registered commenter.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who commented. Council members, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, move that the council deny the petition without prejudice to the applicant's right to refile an annexation petition at any time in the future.
We didn't, did we move on to the new business? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
sorry, that's general,
That was,
right,
that
exactly.
was general comments.
Preview, good preview.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Now we're moving to new business. This brings us to item E1, the resolution annexation at approximately 2200 West between 2800 North and 3300 North. Now,
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Dugan, I will look for a motion.
Thank you. I move that council deny the petition without prejudice to the applicant's right to refile an annexation petition at any time in the future. I further move, pursuant to Utah Code Section 10-2-418, the council initiate a legislative action requesting the city administration start a city-led process to annex the properties in unincorporated Salt Lake County, generally located north of 2100 North and west of I-215. This will be formally confirmed at an upcoming council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Petro. Is there any discussion to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yep.
So the North Point Small Area Plan has been an absolute ball of twine, and pulling on one piece loosens up another, and has proven to be more complex the further we go along. This particular parcel being no exception. We've had a previous annexation request that mirrors these boundaries. We already know from the county that they do not like these boundaries, that they create peninsulas and islands, and the preference is to address this through cleaning those up. We believe that a city-led annexation will be in our benefit because we will be able to not only comply and meet the needs of the county, but any development on this property will disproportionately become a burden to Salt Lake City, and our ability to determine what happens on that property is paramount to our generational success here. I also want to thank Ms. Denise Payne, who is in the back, who is vigilant, who represents consistently the needs of the constituents who live out there, and who keeps us aware of this relatively remote area and the unique needs out there. I want to thank Councilmember Dugan, who has taken his District 6 environmental zeal and made sure that the West Side is going to benefit from it by showing up and helping us to understand the complexities. This issue, this current annexation request does not reflect the best use. This does not reflect trends that we're trying to work toward in the master plan. I want to thank the developer for being open and for understanding that this is a step we need to take, and we do look forward to working with him. They have been very open and very accommodating. And I thank my co-counselors tonight for being willing to reject this proposal so that we can move forward with something that is more comprehensively responsive to the county's needs, to the city's needs, to the constituents' needs, and to what we generationally want to see happen on this property.
Thank you, Councilmember Petro. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, that passes 7-0. We have no unfinished business items, which brings us to our consent agenda. I will look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second. I have a motion by Councilmember Bowie, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 7-0, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We will see you at our next meeting.